parents didn't invite me to their housewarming. It's a celebration for a real family, they wrote in the group chat, but I didn't write anything. A month later, when they came to ask for money, I cut them off. And then Dad went crazy. Later, I found out they had bought a new house from Tracy's Instagram, not from them. A carousel of filtered images popped up on my feed one afternoon, her posing with our parents in front of a sold sign, everyone grinning like they had just closed on a beachfront mansion. The truth was far from that. It was a 2-story, vinyl-sided house in one of those pre-planned neighborhoods with names like Whispering Oaks or Silver Pines, even though there isn't a single oak or pine tree nearby. I didn't say anything. I hadn't really been in the loop for a while. That's the thing about families like mine. You grow up thinking there's some invisible bond that keeps you together, but eventually you realize some people are just stuck in the same house. And when they're not, distance becomes a choice. Growing up, it was clear that Tracy was her favorite. It wasn't even subtle. She got a car when she was 16. I got a lecture on responsibility. She crashed that car. They bought her another one. I once asked for gas money and got a comment about being ungrateful. My mother always said that Tracy had a spark. That spark led to her dating older guys in college, skipping finals, and eventually ending up with Daniel Rich, divorced, with a house on the water and no kids. My parents treated her engagement as if she had just gotten into Harvard. Meanwhile, I worked my way through community college, held down a full-time job at a warehouse, and fixed my own damn car every time it broke down. I never asked for anything, not because I didn't need help, but because I knew I wasn't going to get it. So, yeah. When I saw that group chat message, I wasn't even surprised. This is a celebration for a real family. That was it. Just a line that dropped into the chat like a knife. No explanation, no names, but I knew it was for me. Everyone else was tagged in pictures or mentioned by name. I wasn't. Tracy, of course, started dropping photos like she was on assignment for Architectural Digest. Her by the new fireplace. Her in the kitchen holding wine. Her in the driveway with our dad. Each caption was worse than the last. Couldn't be prouder. New beginnings. The way it was always meant to be. I didn't say anything. I just watched and laughed. Not out loud. Just one of those dry, empty laughs you give when someone goes out of their way to exclude you and thinks they've scored a point. That night, Grandma called. She doesn't usually get involved unless it's serious. She's sharp, lives alone, still drives at 83, and keeps a little notebook of everyone's birthdays because she doesn't trust those damn Facebook reminders. She didn't ask how I was. She just said, "I saw what they wrote. They think Tracy made it because she married a man with money. But real success is what you build, not what you marry into." I didn't argue. I never do with her. She's the only one in this family who's never made me feel like a backup plan. What none of them knew, not even Tracy, was that I was doing pretty well. I kept it to myself. I had a small business on the side, repairing old electronics. And over the past year, I'd started to make more from it than I did from my day job. I was finally saving some real money. Nothing flashy, no photos, just working quietly. So, when they threw their real family party without me, I let them. Let them toast and smile and post their rehearsed little moments. What made it funny, really funny, was that exactly a month later, my parents showed up at my apartment. Not to apologize, not to bring leftovers or to say they missed me. They were broke and they wanted money. And that's when things got weird. Like really weird. It was a Sunday afternoon when they came. I almost didn't answer the door. I had just gotten back from a weekend job fixing up an old jukebox for a guy who ran a retro diner, and I was dead tired. I wasn't expecting anyone. And when I looked through the peephole and saw my dad's face, something inside me stopped. I opened it slowly. There they were, both of them. My mom in full makeup, like she was coming from a wedding, and my dad with that stiff smile he used to pull out at parent-teacher conferences when he pretended not to be disappointed in me. They didn't waste any time. No small talk, no, "How have you been?" My mom just said, were going through a little situation, and I could already feel the shape of what was to come. It turned out that the house they'd been showing off in pictures wasn't fully paid for. In fact, they'd barely scraped together enough for a down payment, counting on some promised support from Tracy and Daniel that never came. Daniel had apparently sunk some money into a business venture that flopped, and Tracy wasn't legally tied to any of it. Classic. They'd also refinanced their old house before selling it, burned through their savings trying to upgrade everything in the new place: custom lighting, a ridiculous backsplash, a wine fridge nobody needed, and now they were sitting on a pile of debt and a suddenly ballooning mortgage. And then the icing on the cake: my dad got laid off. Apparently his company had been restructuring for months and he didn't see it coming. Or maybe he did and didn't care. Either way, he was now unemployed in his mid-50s and panicking. I stood there and said nothing. I just listened. My mom kept saying things like, "We thought Tracy would help out more." And, you know, she married into money, but it's not really hers. And we always thought you were the steady one. That last one almost made me laugh. Steady, like a chair in the corner that no one ever sits in. Suddenly, I was useful. Steady. Then came the question. My father finally said it. They needed help. Money. Not a lot, they said. Just enough to cover the mortgage for a few months, maybe pay off the credit card bills that were piling up. My mom said they had a plan to get back on their feet. They just needed a little breathing room. I didn't even hesitate. I told them no. I told them I didn't want to be a part of whatever fantasy they were living, that I wasn't their safety net, and that I didn't appreciate being told I wasn't part of the real family one month and then being asked for money the next. And that's when my dad completely lost it. Not just angry, red in the face, screaming, accusing me of turning my back on my own blood, saying things like, "After all we've done for you," which honestly made me wonder if we remembered the same childhood. My mom tried to calm him down, but he just kept going. Said I was ungrateful, said I was selfish, said I'd regret it. Then he said something I'll never forget. "If your grandmother hadn't poisoned you against us, maybe you'd know what loyalty is." That's when I told them to leave. Not angrily, just plain and clear. As I closed the door, I realized something I hadn't fully admitted before. I felt nothing. Not guilt, not anger, just a strange kind of peace. Of course, that peace didn't last long because the next day Tracy texted me and she had a plan. The message came in at 6:14 inches the morning. Tracy never texted me that early. "Hey, can we talk?" No emojis, no dramatic punctuation. That was the first red flag. She always used at least 2 exclamation points and a heart when she wanted something. I left it unread. I figured it was about the blow-up with our parents. Maybe she was trying to do damage control, now that the golden child image was cracking a bit. Or maybe she just wanted to play the mediator, pretend to be the sane one in all the chaos. I gave her a few hours. She texted again. Then she called. It was the voicemail she left that made me curious. I didn't expect what I heard. No fake warmth. No, "I hope you're doing well." Just straight to the point. She said she had an idea that could help everyone. This was the second red flag. When Tracy had ideas, someone always got screwed. Usually not her. Usually me. I called her back mostly to hear the pitch. I wanted to know how far she was willing to go now that things were unraveling. She answered on the first ring. She didn't pretend to ask how I was. She went right in. Told me she wanted me to give our parents the money they were asking for. But she wanted it to look like it came from her. Not just the money, but the loan. She said it would protect her image with Daniel's family. Apparently, she painted a picture of herself as the devoted, generous daughter with successful parents and a clean family history. She couldn't afford for this to turn into something messy. She said if I sent them the money, she'd claim it came from her, and in return she'd take care of me quietly, whatever that meant, monthly repayments or a favor down the line. She even floated the idea of introducing me to someone in Daniel's business circle, as if I would jump at the chance to network with another plastic shark in a rented suit. I asked her if she was listening to herself. She said, "I'm just trying to keep the family from falling apart." That was when I lost it. I told her that it had already fallen apart, that she and our parents had seen to that the family they were trying to keep intact never included me. I reminded her of the party, of the message, of how she laughed and sent selfies while I watched from the sidelines. And now, a few weeks later, she expected me to pretend she was the hero. She didn't even get defensive. That was the worst part. She didn't deny any of it. She just said as calmly as anything, "You always change your mind." Eventually, that phone call stayed with me. Not because I was tempted to help, but because something clicked. Tracy didn't just think I'd help, she thought I needed to. That I had some hidden desire for her approval, some leftover wound from childhood that I still wanted to bandage. And maybe I did, but not anymore. The truth was, I'd been building something solid for a while. Quietly, I had started restoring vintage tech turntables, tube radios, even old pinball machines. It started small, just for fun, and then it grew. I got a reputation. Orders started coming in from out of state. Last month, a collector offered to buy out my inventory and invest in a real shop. I hadn't told anyone yet. I didn't want to hear Tracy's condescending, "That's so cute," or my mother's blank stare when I tried to explain how a refurbished amp from the 1970s could sell for $2,000. They never cared what I did. Not until they needed something. I thought that was the end of it until my grandmother called, her voice sharper than usual. She said they came to her house uninvited, sitting in her living room like nothing had happened, talking about me like I was some unstable recluse who had been poisoned against them. My father even suggested that she talk some sense into me, that maybe she could help them if I wouldn't. Then he casually implied that maybe she owed them. After all, they were burdened with the less successful child, and hadn't she always favored me? She kicked them out, told them not to come back. But before she hung up, she said something that stayed with me. "They're not just desperate, Eric. They're bitter, and bitter people do stupid things." I didn't think much of it at the time, but 2 nights later, I came home and found a note slipped under my door. No name, no handwriting I recognized. It just said, "You think you're better than them now? Don't forget who raised you." And that's when I realized this wasn't just about money anymore. It was late, close to midnight, when I found the note. I was coming back from a supply run. A guy 2 towns over was selling a broken 1983 Sony turntable for cheap, and I wasn't about to pass it up. It was pouring, and I was soaked by the time I got to my door. I almost missed it. Just a single piece of paper folded once, slipped under the door like a passive-aggressive flyer. No envelope, no handwriting, just a printed message in bold black type. "You think you're better than them now? Don't forget who raised you." It wasn't the message that upset me. It was the fact that someone had come to my door. My building isn't exactly the kind of place you can walk into unnoticed. You need a code or a key fob. So someone had either waited for someone else to let them in, or followed a tenant. I stood there holding the paper for a long minute. It wasn't signed, but it didn't have to be. Only 3 people in the world would write something like that. Tracy, my mom, or my dad. And honestly, it could have been all 3 in a group effort. The funny thing, the language was almost polite. No threats, no swearing, just a cold reminder of a twisted belief that because they brought me into the world, I somehow owed them a debt that could never be repaid. I didn't call them. I didn't even respond. I went inside, put the note in the drawer with some other crap I'd kept over the years, Tracy's wedding invitation that I had accidentally left out, a birthday card from my parents that addressed me as Champ, because apparently writing my real name was too much trouble. But after that, I started locking the door. 3 days passed. Silence. Then, out of nowhere, a barrage of missed phone calls from my mom. 5 in a row. 5 in a row. She never called me before, unless it was Christmas or someone died. And there was a voicemail. "No, Hello. Just her voice, sharp and tired. You're being selfish, Eric. You don't understand what it means to have real responsibilities. We're trying to hold our home together. You don't know what that's like. You don't have a family of your own. You've never had to take care of anyone but yourself. A few thousand. That's all we're asking for. That's not even a big deal for someone who's so successful, right? She said so successful like it was a joke. Like it was something I made up. 30 seconds later, another voicemail, this time from Dad. If it wasn't for us, you'd still be flipping burgers. You think your little fixer-upper means anything? You think you built it all on your own? We taught you to work, we gave you everything. And now you want to act like we don't mean anything to you. I didn't even finish listening the first time. I stopped halfway through and threw my phone on the counter. Then, just out of curiosity, I played it from the beginning twice. Not because I had any doubts, but because I wanted to hear how far they'd go to rewrite history. Everything I had, I'd earned. The late nights, the learning curve, the months living in that shoebox apartment where the walls sweated in the summer and froze in the winter, the side gigs. The weekends, I skipped parties to fix someone's ancient speaker system just to make rent. But none of that mattered to them. They couldn't see past their own narrative. In their story, they were the saints, and I was the ingrate. Tracy was the golden child who married a man with a yacht, and I was the backup who was supposed to quietly support the whole operation when the ship started to sink. That night, I got a text from Tracy, just 5 words. Did you get the message? So, it was her. No denial, no explanation, just confirmation. I answered with 1 word, yes. A minute later, you're really blowing this out of proportion. They're your parents. They need help. You're acting like you're some kind of victim here. It's just money, Eric. Grow up. I didn't answer, but something changed after that. I stopped expecting them to leave. I stopped hoping they'd leave me alone if I just kept quiet. The next morning, I found my father standing by my car, not moving, not talking, just waiting. He was there when I came out of my building, just standing by my car like he had every right to be there. Like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't sent me voicemails calling me ungrateful. Hadn't tried to guilt his own mother into cleaning up the mess he and my mom made. He didn't say anything right away. Just nodded like this was a casual encounter, like we were going to talk about football or the weather. I thought maybe we could talk face to face, he said. I didn't move, didn't blink. He went on like he had a script. Told me things were worse than he had let on. The mortgage wasn't just overdue. It was about to go into default. The bank was already calling. The credit cards were maxed out. And not just theirs. Tracy had given them access to one of hers months ago, and now she'd cut them off completely. Daniel, surprisingly, wasn't interested in bailing them out. Dad said, "We made some mistakes, okay? But we tried to build something better." I just looked at him. "For who?" I asked. That stopped him for a second. But then, like clockwork, he tried the guilt card again. He said I was being dramatic, that every family goes through hard times, that I had no idea what it was like to carry a family, to keep it all afloat. You think just because you've got a little money now that gives you the right to judge us? He said, I didn't raise you to be like this. I told him plainly and calmly, you didn't raise me. You tolerated me. You rejected everything about me that didn't look like Tracy. You gave her everything. And now, you want to take away what I built for myself. He started to shift as if he wanted to interrupt, but I didn't let him. You want money? Ask Tracy. Ask Daniel. Ask the family you were proud to have. The ones you invited to the new house. The ones you toasted with champagne while laughing at my absence. He began to blush. He said, that was a misunderstanding. Really? You posted in the group chat. This is a celebration for a real family. He had nothing. Not a single word. He looked away for a second, as if to rewind the whole thing and try again with a different script. Then he said, so that's it? You're just going to let your parents drown? I looked at him for a long second and said, "They are not my responsibility." That was it. That was the moment he broke. He exploded, started screaming in the middle of the parking lot, said I was ungrateful, that he should have never supported me, that I was nothing without her, that I'd regret it. "You're going to be alone, Eric. Do you think money will keep you warm? When we're gone, who will be left? Tracy? She doesn't even like you. You'll die bitter." I didn't answer. I just got in my car and drove away. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel free. I felt finished, but I also knew them. My parents didn't lose quietly. When they were cut off, they didn't retreat. They schemed. And I was right, because 5 days later, my business account was flagged. Someone was trying to report me for fraud. A bogus tip. Totally anonymous. And the worst part, they used my grandmother's name. It started with a frozen account. I was in the middle of packing up a refurbished Morantz amplifier for a collector in Michigan when the alert hit my phone. Account under review. Immediate action required. At first, I thought it was a scam. One of those phishing texts. But when I logged into my business account, it was frozen. Funds frozen. All transactions halted. There was a flagged report claiming that I was selling counterfeit goods, that I was deceiving customers, that I was pocketing payments and shipping defective equipment, the kind of accusation that could destroy a small business if it stuck. My hands went cold. Not out of fear, just out of sheer madness. I contacted the bank's fraud department, got on the phone with a manager, explained everything. I sent over invoices, customer testimonials, serial number logs, photos, receipts, everything but blood samples. The woman on the phone was calm, understanding. She said she'd look into it within 48 hours. Before ending the call, she said something I wasn't expecting. "Just so you know, the person who filed the complaint identified herself as Florence Whitman." I didn't say anything for a second. "Florence Whitman?" I repeated. "Yes," she said. "She claimed to be a customer and also your grandmother." I thanked her and hung up. I thanked her and hung up. I sat there in silence, not angry, just disappointed in a way that felt old, like a familiar bruise that someone had pressed again. My grandmother couldn't even use a microwave without asking for help. She had a flip phone. She thought Wi-Fi was some kind of vitamin. There was no universe in which she would file an online fraud report under her name. But there were exactly 3 people who could have done it under her name, and 2 of them had called me a disgrace less than a week ago. The third tried to trick me into giving her credit for money she didn't have. I didn't even call Tracy. I didn't text my parents. I went straight to Grandma's house. She was outside, kneeling in her yard, pulling weeds as if nothing had happened. I went up to her and told her what the bank had said. Her hands didn't even stop moving. "I thought they'd try something like this," she said. "Your dad came by 2 days ago. He left angry when I wouldn't talk some sense into you." I sat with her for a while. She called the bank herself, left a voicemail saying the fraud claim was false, and confirmed that she'd never filed a complaint of any kind. She didn't ask permission. She just did it. "They're trying to hurt you now," she said matter-of-factly, "because they can't control you." That night, I sat down at my desk and typed one last message into the group chat. My parents, Tracy, that dusty thread where they used to drop family photos and dinner invitations. The same thread where I wasn't supposed to notice the party pictures with captions like, "Finally, all of us together." I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I wrote, "I know that one of you used Grandma's name to try to hurt my business. I don't care which one of you it was. I'm done. Don't contact me again. Don't ask for anything. Don't pretend we're family. You made it clear what I was to you. I believed you. Now believe me." And I left it at that. No one responded. I blocked all 3. Changed my number a week later. Deleted the group chat. I even changed the lock on my garage after someone, probably my dad, drove by and just sat in the car for a few minutes. Didn't get out. Just looked at the building before driving off. Tracy tried to reconnect with me on LinkedIn 2 weeks later. I didn't accept. She messaged me there, saying she didn't know what I was so angry about, that families go through tough times, and that I needed to be the bigger person. I blocked her there too. They're still living in that house, from what Grandma hears from the neighbors. My dad tried to get a part-time job, but no one wants to hire a man with that kind of ego. My mother started selling essential oils online. Tracy and Daniel moved to Nevada, probably because people there didn't know who they were. Meanwhile, I moved to a bigger space. Got a real workshop with a garage, room for storage, room to breathe. Orders keep coming in. A guy from Oregon just paid me $5,000 for a mint condition reel that I restored from the ground up. Grandma visits on Sundays. We make grilled cheese sandwiches and listen to old jazz records. She doesn't mention my parents. Neither do I. We're both comfortable with the silence. I used to think I wanted closure. That if they apologized, if they admitted they were wrong, I'd finally be okay. Turns out I didn't need any of that. I just needed distance. And now? Now I sleep like I deserve it.